So thank you, Joyce, for making time to take part in our interview on my TCC experience. So to begin with, I need to understand what you do. What is your research career? Take us through your research career and why it is important to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Joyce Wagare Goge. I am a consultant psychologist and research mentor with Gwira Communication Foundation. Gwira is a Rwandese word, which means kindness. I am also a candidate of Doctor of Psychology, PsyD, Clinical Psychology at USIU Africa. At United States International University Africa, the PSYD is distinct from the PhD because it's a practitioner scholar model. It emphasizes more on the practical aspect, while it still has the full course of the dissertation research. I'm also a doctoral teaching and research assistant at the USIU Africa Center for Cognitive and Developmental Research under Dr. Dana Basnight Brown. I am the lab manager running lab experiments on language, memory, and other brain functions. My research career began 11 years ago in the year 2010, thereabouts, when I worked under the USIU Africa Language Center. I was in charge of teaching international students whose first language was not English on writing, research, and I became an APA style enthusiast, and from there began to develop research mentorship skills under the tutelage of an English professor. Later on, I embarked on a number of researches as a scholar on my own and in teams. My current specialization in research is mixed method. I am also a thought leader in research ethics, disability or deaf studies, and Afrofuturism in Kenyan mental health. I won a global award at the American Psychological Association 2018 convention in San Francisco, California, for a study on barriers to accessing mental health for deaf adults in Kenya. Currently, I am the lead research mentor at AIDA Africa in Kenya. I am also a research mentor and recently got promoted to research steward under Author Aid in UK, where I facilitate a social sciences journal club group. Journal club groups are online spaces for growing researchers. I also provide individual strategy calls for researchers all over the world on research mentorship and career coaching in the field of research. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I can see you're quite passionate about research and also research support as well. And that is the whole sphere of mentorship. Now, beyond that, you have a specific focus on mental health as well. Why mental health? Why did you choose that? Why did you choose mental health?
Yeah, good question. Most practitioners in mental health, like myself, got into the field out of personal and family tragedy. So that was my first initial call. I wanted to transform my community. And so I got into the space of mental health. I have since merged research and mental health, and I'm now highly specialized in delivering mental health and psychosocial support to researchers. So I am in partnership with a few entities, such as Dragonfly in the US, among others, and I am providing holistic growth and wellness support. As you and I both know, the research journey, especially for postgraduate students, is full of quite a number of challenges. There is an African personhood that is not fully appreciated inside of research circles or in academia. For instance, if you and I today have a relative who dies, we have not only a civic responsibility, but also a moral responsibility to attend the funeral and all the preparations thereof. So the African personhood, as compared to somebody from another part of the world who would only do it out of personal or civic duty, has in addition a moral duty to our communities. A lot of postgraduate students are already at the helm of their careers. They're doing so much for their communities. For instance, I also am a board member of a high school called Kasarani Treeside Secondary School for the Deaf. And therefore, my contribution to the community goes beyond just getting a job and getting hired. These challenges can be triggers for a lot of mental health conditions, such as trauma and depression. I'm currently in the last stages of publishing a blog article on the trauma of postgraduate students. After I walked a journey, I designed a program called Study Smart, whereby I provide holistic growth and wellness to researchers. We found out that from the 1-year pilot project, many postgraduate students are really struggling. There are issues which are outside of the systems, but there are also some systemic challenges due to shortage in capacity, for instance, of research supervisors, which can predispose a lot of students, a lot of academics to a lot of stress. Research in itself is arduous, it's demanding, and some skills are needed to master postgraduate research or research for independent scholars as well, such as time management, how to overcome procrastination, issues around how do you navigate the complex and dynamically changing landscape. We now have many organizations like Training Center in Communication and others who are doing amazing work of creating spaces outside universities where researchers feel held, but the needs are still many. I have done the whole range of interventions, from dealing with procrastination, motivation, to even handling suicide of postgraduate students. So this is an issue about equity, access, justice, ethics. We have a big problem in this setting also on research integrity. And therefore, research mentorship is a new space. It's a fledgling industry, and it's a space where students can receive and give support, psychosocial support, which is so critical to completion. The latest Commission for University Education, CUE, research showed that we have a high number of students who are attritioning, not able to complete their program because of both internal and external factors. For me, I see there are two ways. I think it's both individual factors, like I have some schoolmates who got, long-term illnesses like cancer and therefore had to drop out to take care of themselves or their loved ones. Then there are also, aside from these individual factors, there are also systemic problems within our universities. Currently with the COVID-19, there's a cash crunch, shortage in capacity, especially with the higher graduate programs, which are highly specialized, and the system just being overwhelmed. So who then gets to contain this situation? So the mission for mental health for researchers is critical: to end suffering, to eliminate oppression, to give holistic skills for students to learn things like project management, how to write a review, and how to receive feedback. Receiving feedback is as good as giving, And so we are here to impact lives and reach people. And I'm doing this in conjunction with quite a number of organizations that I work with, most notably AIDA Africa, and also a few others, as I've mentioned before. These are partners who come together. And we also, there's a big gap right now of just safe spaces where people can unleash a lot of the pain and the toxicity that is inside the university systems, which are currently very hierarchical and rigid. They don't really accommodate a lot of creativity. And that is a cause for a mental health challenge for our students.
So from what you're telling me, your focus, and actually there's, other than the community passion, the homegrown community passion, it is your everyday life where you're working with academics, you're seeing researchers, they are struggling. So it is, your focus is on mental health in academia, especially for postgraduate students, which is something that has been taken for granted until when, of course, the pandemic came to fore, and we started seeing now the reality of students struggling throughout the process because they don't even have that structure, which wasn't even good enough. They don't even have that structure to support them. So that's interesting.
You're very right.
Yeah.
The philosophy I use is called cura personalis, which means look at the whole person. You are very right to highlight COVID-19 pandemic, because in addition to the already struggling systems and students and the universities, we now have a global pandemic. I've also heard recently that Ebola is emerging in Guinea and
yes,
it's going to be spreading.
Yeah.
And then we, in addition to all this, we have an unprecedented transition into online learning. There's a very big transition going on. Nobody can keep up with the scale and immensity of the technological shift. And this in itself can also predispose a lot of people to a lot of stress. So how do you join the Zoom troopers as an online learner? How can you take the best out of the technology, which gives us both benefits and burdens? A lot of the burdens in the tech space are like students struggling with online classes the whole day and they have eye fatigue. So then having people balance academics and the rest of their life is very critical, so as to provide holistic wellness and health.
That is something that is not taken care of. And I'm glad you're doing that. So thank you for sharing with us your focus and why you're focusing on mental health. Now, with what you're going through, what have been the highs and lows in your research career?
One day in my undergraduate class, my professor, who's now become my doctoral supervisor, picked me out of class and determined that I was a distinguished student. I did not need to continue sitting in theory. And she joined me into a practical team that was doing research in the department. That was a victorious moment for me, because I really got hands-on experience working alongside my professors and learning to treat them as colleagues, which is an amazing opportunity that my university provided. Soon after, I graduated with honors from my bachelor's degree. In the year 2018, I was awarded a global award at the American Psychological Association convention. This by far has been the biggest success in my career. It's been the helm of my career, and everything after is just, icing on the cake. The study was a co-authorship between myself as a first author student. They were awarding first student, the students who are first authors, and in collaboration with a student in a different university, we fundraised. One of the things that I think is still a problem, we still have a mentality that we are waiting for donors. So a lot of the research mentorship and research programs in Africa are short-lived because they're not sustainable. But at the time, we did not have any donor. My friend from Daystar, Ann Witty, and I just sat and thought about our passion working with the deaf community in Kenya who use sign language. And we fundraised from family and friends. We just had to raise the entire amount. And we were in the US for the first time. We wrote about our experience there as well. We did an autoethnographic article in a newsletter. And this was a very exhilarating moment for me. It was also proof that I did not need to wait. There is a way that if I kept curious and I kept asking, that I can always get, from the support of my community, I can always get my research goals. So that was definitely my biggest moment in my career.
Okay. What about the lows? What about the lows in your career?
Yeah.
You're constantly dealing with people who are not in a good space. Even if they might look, they're doing very well in their career or researchers, but they are not in a good space. So what are the things that you've gone through that have hit? And also, even for you, since you're even focusing on mental health in postgraduates, you are and still are a postgraduate. You're actually in the process of defending your thesis, which should be in a couple of weeks. So the question is, what have been the lows in your research career as a postgraduate, but also as a practitioner?
Wonderful. So I was supposed to graduate in 4 years. I am now in my 8th year. I've taken double the time. I lost 3 very close family members, and that was definitely my lowest. Most notably, my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my mother in 2010. That was 11 years ago. And my mother was my pillar. She was an academic. She was a PhD holder. She definitely gave me a lot of the values that are foundational to my career up to date. One of the things I'll never forget is throughout her wake and funeral service, the diversity and the number of people who spoke about her values, those really stood out. And it occurred to me that anybody who's in academics or leadership or research spaces is a leader. And sometimes we confer leadership to people by their titles, but not really by their values. But people praise her for her humility, her generosity, her integrity. She's definitely a big part of who I am today. My family, my parents and my siblings, have gone through a lot over the years. I would say I have also lost, my own daughter at birth, which was also a really low moment. I almost dropped out of school, but I came right back because of the support of my community. Generally speaking, the 2 careers that I hold 50% of the time each are not easy. You're right. I'm usually dealing with broken people, but because the work gives me such fulfillment, it's not the broken people per se that would be the low, but really the system. So a lot of the times I'm lobbying, I'm advocating for a shift in our systems in mental health in Kenya. And I've now merged, research with policy and practice. I also, in the research space, noticed that we really do not have regulation for the so-called research mentorship. I am certified and accredited both in Kenya and the UK. But there is a whole documentary that was done by BBC called Paper Factory. I'm sure you're familiar with this, which was more about people who write research for others. So lack of integrity in research really is something that I feel very deeply, especially that as a society, we have not gotten to the place where we can call each other out for things that are out of integrity. So on a daily basis, I handle about 1,000 researchers, and I have a variety of cases of, ethical breaches, legal issues, just coming from this very raw space that we are in called research mentorship. And therefore, there are many things that make me sad, but there are also many other things that make me glad and hopeful. I am an Afrofuturist. I'm an optimist. And so I'm still holding space for seeing the damage, but coming to it with curiosity rather than, knives and fighting. I realize a lot of the people that I influence in the system, I influence them if I can continue to be present, be curious, be friendly, so that we can shift those perspectives and have people operating with a lot more integrity. So those are some of the lows of my research career.
Okay. So could you share with us how you were able to finance your postgraduate studies?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. My late mother taught at my university, and like most other private universities in Kenya, children of professors do get 95% of their school fees paid. So I only paid a very small amount, only 5%. When I completed my master's, my mom had already died. The policy was only that I could be studying while she was alive. But the doctorate was a new doctorate program that I also helped write. Surprisingly, I am taking a doctorate program in whose curriculum team I was. I contributed to writing it. And so in the launching of that program, an opportunity arose for a scholarship opportunity. This time they gave only a third of the school fees. So I still had to raise about 66% or so. And 2/3 of that amount was the majority amount. And one of the things that I must highlight is that postgraduate students in these settings struggle to go through school. I remember very clearly, I looked for a job that could end at 3 p.m. so that I could get to class by 5:40, which is when classes begin in the evening. And I got a perfect job in a kindergarten, delivering my psychological services. One day, the kindergarten really loved what I was doing. And they said, we can't have you up to 3. We want to start an after-school program for those who need extra tuition. And guess who's going to do it? You're going to do it.
Oh, wow.
And so my time suddenly shifted. At that time, I didn't have any other job to lean on. And so I started getting late to class. And the juggle, I tell you, is real. The stress is real. Often, postgraduate students are choosing one thing over the other constantly.
Yeah.
And for me, the choice was I drop the job, then I don't have money to pay my bills, and then I can get to school on time, which will not work.
Yeah.
Somehow, I really appreciate my family. They are the giant shoulders on which I stand. If it were not for my 3 sisters whose lives they have made work for them, then I wouldn't have been able to finance my way through school. At some point, I sold my car. I sold a piece of land that my parents had given me for inheritance. So it was not easy. And now that I'm at the tail end of my program, I can see that all this time, I'm just really fortunate. There was only one position for that scholarship opportunity, and they did a thorough background check to see the brightest and the poorest students. So it's a very rigorous process to select just only one student. But my case is not the typical case. Most students have to raise the entire school fees, and most doctoral programs in the country are not funded.
Yeah, that's
the ones that are funded are usually abroad. And most of my classmates, schoolmates, or doctorate students would prefer to be home so as to remain connected with their families. So these are real choices, and people who, have to juggle all these roles. As I said earlier, there was also the African personhood and the moral obligation, in addition to my civic obligation, and really having to show up for my community at the same time as doing this very serious academic career. I'll tell you a funny story. One time, I'm in a family meeting, and my family, extended family, are talking about how they'll have a series of this and that, and they're going on and on. In my head, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, do you guys know how much work I have to do at school? So most people just won't get it, especially for a woman, why you would not take up a lot of caregiving responsibilities, or why you should stop because you're in school. And the challenge is particularly more pronounced for women.
That's true.
I have worked with women intervening for cases of abuse that's coming directly from them sitting with a laptop and doing their schoolwork. Their spouses are demanding their attention. Their children are demanding their attention. One of the spouses I ever dealt with used to put all of his wife's books in a basin and pour water. And the lady would cry. She would have bought the books so expensively, and she would find them in water. The man didn't want to know. And, there are more ladies in postgraduate programs than men in Kenya.
Yeah, true. In Kenya, it's actually, it has increased. It has been very deliberate. Right. Yeah.
So the financial challenges also combined with the other, especially societal attitudes towards women doing their doctorate is real. And the stigma is very high.
It's very high.
One time I visited my maternal grandfather. He's a sweet man. He looked at me and said, all this time, we haven't seen, he wants more grandchildren. And, every parent wants to see more children and grandchildren. But, I just laughed and told him, I think I should go pluck some children from a tree. Because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this career that you take on postgraduate journey. While I could have easily entered into industry and made a lot more money. So it's a big sacrifice, and financing my postgraduate studies is ongoing. It's not easy. This is compounded by delays and the complexity of the systems which are under siege, as I've explained earlier.
Okay. I think yours is a journey of patience and persistence, which is really important in life, really. And right now, it is espoused in your career because you have to, because of the challenges you've also gone through, the personal challenges, even the financial challenges. It's something you can share, and using that experience, you can support postgraduates when they come to you or when you're mentoring them, because you're talking from a space of experience. You see, I've gone through this and I've survived it. It is an issue of patience. You have to be persevere. You need to persevere. So that is really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. During your career, you've gone through a number of many specialist training, including those provided by TCC Africa. So what has been your experience through this, and what encouraged you to come for the TCC training?
I value as a personal philosophy diligence, curiosity, intellectual curiosity, and a learning and growth mindset. And I've really enjoyed the trainings by Training Center in Communication, especially the one on grant writing with John Allen Namu, and the other one on science communication, how to translate jargon, technical concepts into everyday language. I think you do a spectacular job. And I have the evidence. I got the certificates in my email. That's quite highly professional. We now have a big opportunity over the internet. And I believe that many students are still yet to make the shift to learning-centered design or student-centered learning. So a lot of people are not self-directed. What encourages me to come for more is that there is unlimited abundance of resources. There are so many mushrooming organizations locally and internationally doing amazing specialist training. At this time, even compared to 5 years ago, the internet has created the world such as the world is really our oyster. We can really, really get whatever experience. I could be sitting here and doing a full online master's if I choose to. And I feel like there's still a sluggish move by most scholars to take up learning as if African scholars are waiting for permission or as if they're waiting for it to be availed to them. So I think it is great that most people are tentative and careful, but that behavior is inherent. I think it will take time for people to understand that it's time to really take the global stage and increase the number of publications. One of the ways I keep up in that space is I write a lot of small blog pieces. That keeps me in the loop, in the flow of research work, because I'm in several research teams, all running concurrently. I mean, that's the normal life of a researcher, right? Like you have different projects at different stages. And, I think that it's important for people to take up the opportunities and not take support for granted from those people who are actually providing support.
Okay, fantastic. That's a very good answer. Thanks. What have you been doing to support early career researchers in their research life cycle through mentorship or one-on-one support? You had started talking about this, but tell me more about this.
I design and implement research mentorship programs online and in person. One very important project I'm really proud of was the COVID-19 Researchers blog series, which was actually recognized by some top global organizations under author aid. And I encouraged members to publish their experiences as researchers during the pandemic. And, most people actually confess that it was their first piece ever to be published over the internet and in such an international platform. So I think that was really well done. The unity I saw and the diversity in the experiences of researchers all over the world, that was just fantastic. Another flagship program I designed is on mental health called Study Smart. And under that, we've had a host of monthly webinars. We also have a monthly cocktail, which is an informal chit-chat event. And under Ada Africa, we get people to just interact and enjoy being with each other. This is a space where people can begin to accept collaborations and influencing each other and networking, just for professional and personal growth. So a lot of the research programs I am now doing as a research steward in AuthorAid are more like meta research. So I'm thinking about research itself. I'm thinking about the research life cycle. Mostly early career researchers are the majority in all our online mentorship groups, and how we can best deliver group peer review sessions. Those have been really successful. Under Ada Africa, we've also done another very successful program called the mock presentation. So anyone who has an upcoming doctoral or master's concept or proposal or final project can practice presenting and getting feedback. And all of the people who have done a mock with that have actually passed their actual presentations. Nobody has failed so far. So I would say that that's really wonderful. The amount of Ubuntu I am now beginning to see, which is the togetherness in spirit, and Ubuntu is a Xhosa word, which means I am because we are. We are now really coming together in solidarity. About one-on-one support, I also provide strategy calls on research mentorship and career coaching for researchers. There is a research career is a lifestyle, I realize as a clinician, I'm in the front of the hospital room or my office, I'm talking to patients. But in research, what I am mostly doing, I'm behind a machine. So it is a lifestyle. It's actually a lifestyle choice. I'm behind machines, conceptualizing ideas, and then going out to where people are and helping them digest this complex, jargon into everyday life that's practical. So it's a whole gamut of different programs. But the one-on-one support is still a bit of a challenge because we have many more mentees than the mentors who can sustainably support them. And what we found, especially with our mentors currently, is that mentors who are in the diaspora seem to have higher research integrity than the mentors who are continental Africans here in Kenya. So that was really a surprising finding. Another finding is that mentors who are female do a better job with scaffolding, nurturing, and mentors who are male will do better with tutoring and directing and guiding. But overall, the females are better in a long-term marathon effect. But the men are better with the short-term sprints. So there are all these interesting things now in the space where I'm mentoring the mentors as a research steward as well.
So tell me, what does the future hold in your research life cycle?
I will definitely be deepening my work on Afrofuturism. I think that there's very little space about indigenous interventions in mental health. I would like to go deeper in something we forgot. There's a proverb in West Africa with the Sankofa symbol that it is not wrong to go back for that which we forgot. I feel like we haven't given enough impetus or emphasis to the African personhood inside of knowledge production, dissemination. For instance, what kinds of topics are funded? If I said I wanted to do a mega research on herbal medicine for COVID, how many people are ready to give me that money? Most pharma will not be ready to fund things that are more indigenous knowledge. But the future is getting brighter. I really want to deepen my roots inside the Afrofuturism. Sphere, African indigenous knowledge. Or I also would like to develop which is mixed methodologies, which I think is also a big gap. So I do have changing interests over time, but I think being my age now is a good time. It's all timely that it's getting now solid and the form is kind of more clear as I continue. I definitely will be seeking more collaboration. So I would like more global impact, especially of the community of African scholars in the world. So that is my future.
Okay. So I can see you've entrenched your personal life, your personal tragedy in your research career. It is the foundation of what you're using to support postgraduates and early career researchers. The passion is very clear. It is not easy to see. Your passion hides the pain that you've gone through, the personal loss and tragedy you've gone through. And it takes a lot of courage to have a smile and take one step at a time, and also in turn help those who are in need. And for that, we admire you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us your story. Thank you so much for being candid about your personal loss and how it has been a pivot and a pivot and a foundation for your research career, and also supporting postgraduates and early career researchers in supporting the mental health of early career researchers, which is something that is always taken for granted. So thank you so much, Wangari, and I look forward to seeing the publishing of this story. Once again,
thank you.
Okay then, bye.
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 All right.